I came home from a night shift at 6:40 in the morning and found an old man in pajama pants standing in my backyard, holding a carpenter's level against my fence post, and the first thing he ever said to me was, "Your post is out of plumb, son." Who taught you to set a post? Behind him, 3 pickets of the fence between my yard and my neighbor's lay flat in the grass, where he'd pushed through them. And behind those, coming over the gap at a dead run, with her bathrobe flying, was the neighbor herself, the one who'd moved in 6 weeks ago with a moving truck, a mountain of boxes, and a face that politely discouraged casseroles. "Dad, Dad, I'm so sorry, Dad. This isn't Nora." The old man didn't turn around. He tapped the bubble in the level. Twice, professionally aggrieved. "This man's post is out of plumb, and his rail is shot. We can't leave it like this. What would people think of the branch? I'm a paramedic. 14 years. I know what 6:40 a.m., plus pajama pants plus a fence walked through instead of around adds up to, and I knew it before she reached us. And so instead of doing any of the useless things, I looked at where the bubble sat in the glass and said, 'You're right, sir. It's out a 1/4 inch. Easy. I've been meaning to get to it.' You free this morning?" The old man turned around then. Sharp blue eyes, white stubble, and, swimming up through the fog, hand over hand, a grin with 60 years of charm behind it. "For a neighbor," he said, "I'll clear my calendar." That's how I met Gus. His daughter got him back through the gap in the pickets with the practiced gentleness of someone who has done it before and expects to do it again, and over her shoulder she mouthed "thank you" at me like it was 2 words standing in for 2,000. And an hour later, when I was still out there stacking the broken pickets, she came back with 2 coffees and her hair fixed and her armor half on, and studied me for a long moment the way you'd study a bridge before trusting it with weight. "I owe you a fence," she said, "and an explanation." And she took a breath that cost something. "There's someone I want you to meet. Properly, this time." Properly turned out to be the back porch, real mugs, and Gus Novak holding court in a cardigan, because Morning Gus, I would learn, is a different country from Dusk Gus. Morning Gus managed the downtown branch of First Merchant Bank for 31 years. Morning Gus remembers the vault combination from 1988, the name of every teller he ever hired, and the precise Tuesday in 1994 the ceiling leaked on the loan files. Morning Gus shook my hand like he was approving me for something. "Cole Maddox," I said. "The paramedic." He nodded at my uniform shirt. "Steady hands, terrible hours. We'd have given you the good mortgage rate." Then, leaning in, conspiratorial, "My daughter tells me I went through your fence. I'll be honest with you, Cole, I don't remember it. But if I did it, the fence had it coming. You want to know when I fell for this family? It was there. Right there." Nora walked me out through the yard afterward and gave me the shape of it, quick and unsentimental. Eyes on the broken section like it was a chart she was reading. "Frontotemporal edges," the doctor said. "Mixed picture. Worse at dusk. Sundowning," she said, and looked at me to see if she'd have to explain it, and relaxed 1 degree when she didn't. 3 weeks he'd been living with her. 3 weeks. Into a house she'd owned for 6 after a divorce that had been final for exactly 40 days. "So, the fence," she said. "It's not decorative. At dusk he goes to work. He gets up, he finds his keys, and he goes to open the branch, which is a coffee shop now, 1.5 miles that way. 2 roads without sidewalk. Last Tuesday, the fence lost the argument. She towed a rotten rail, and it crumbled like the metaphor it was. I need 40 feet of it solid, and I need it before." She stopped. And right on cue, I'd learned that timing too. Her phone buzzed, and whatever was on the screen closed her face like a till drawer. "Before that," she said, and turned the phone so I could read it. "Gets any worse." The email was forwarded from an address at a wealth management firm, all warm fonts and cold content. And it was signed Roger, which is how I learned that the divorce hadn't actually ended. It had just changed weapons. Because Nora's ex-husband, Roger Sloan, licensed financial advisor, was still, 40 days after the decree, the durable power of attorney and successor trustee for one, Gus Novak, her father, his former father-in-law. And the email, in the tone of a man declining a subordinate's expense report, announced that in the interest of cash flow prudence during this transitional period, he was pausing discretionary care expenditures from Gus's accounts. Discretionary care expenditures. Meaning Dulce, the home aide who'd been with Gus 4 years, whose last 2 invoices had bounced, who'd finally, apologetically in tears, quit. Meaning the medication co-pays that had lapsed the same month, which is a sentence a paramedic hears with his whole spine. "That's why he's with me," Nora said. Flat. Arms crossed against the morning. 3 weeks ago I stopped by Dad's house to drop off groceries and found out the aide had been gone 11 days. 11 days, Cole. The fridge had condiments and a birthday cake Roger's office sent. He cut off my father's care the week our divorce finalized, and when I called to ask why, do you know what he said? He said, "Your father's portfolio and your feelings are 2 different files, Nora." She looked at the fence, at the gap her dad had walked through toward a bank that closed in 2009. The marriage is over. But he kept Dad. Legally, he didn't forget my father Cole. He invoiced him. I've run calls into every kind of wreckage this county makes. I know the difference between someone venting and someone drowning. So I did the thing my mother did for 4 years while I helped her die in the house I now live in alone. I picked up a hammer, and I stayed. 40 feet by Sunday, I said. And Nora, I work nights, my mornings are free, and I've read a bank statement before. If you want a second set of eyes on more than the fence, I've got them. She looked at me for one long beat too many. "Careful," she said. "The last man who offered to help with the finances married me for them." She meant it as armor. I heard it as a map. The statements came in a box, because Roger, with the punctilious cruelty of a man who knows exactly where the legal lines are, complied with Nora's written request for records by sending 4 years of paper, unsorted, in a copy paper carton with a sticky note that said, "Per your request, R." We spread them on her kitchen table on a Saturday morning, and it was Gus. Morning Gus. Cardigan Gus, reading glasses down his nose like a man back at his desk, who found it. His finger, which shook a little on coffee cups, did not shake on columns. It stopped on a line halfway down a statement and tapped. Twice. The same way he'd tapped the level. "This fee is wrong." "Dad, which?" "This one." "Advisory fee, monthly, tap, it's $2,900. It used to be $940. Same account, same balance. Smaller balance, actually, so the fee should have gone down." He looked up over the glasses at both of us, and for a moment there was no fog anywhere in the state. "I ran a branch for 31 years. I lose Tuesdays. I don't lose decimals." He was right. It took us 4 hours and 3 legal pads to map it, with Gus checking our arithmetic like God's own auditor. And it was worse than a fee. The advisory fee had tripled the month Roger and Nora separated, a punishment with a paper trail. And threaded underneath it, going back 3 years, was a recurring quarterly transfer, $4,000 to $6,000 at a time, to something called RS Capital Partners, LLC. A name that appeared on no prospectus, no agreement, no disclosure anywhere in the box. $81,000 and change walked quietly out of a retired bank manager's retirement while his son-in-law held the pen. Nora sat back from the table with her hands in her hair. Gus, still in the columns, made a small, dangerous sound I can only describe as professional. "RS," he said. "Roger Sloan." He named the bag after himself. He took his glasses off, folded them, and laid them on the statements like a gavel. Nora, sweetheart, I'd like to fire my advisor. Dad, it's not. He's your power of attorney. It's not that simple. Then let's get simple people, Gus said, who know how to make it simple. We tried the polite road first, for the record, because Nora is thorough and Lucy would later thank her for it. She wrote Roger a formal email that Sunday, measured, factual, copying nobody, requesting a full accounting of the advisory fees and an explanation of RS Capital Partners within 10 business days. The reply came in 9 minutes, which told us he'd been waiting, and it told us everything else too. 2 sentences. An attorney CC'd. The mask fully professional. All fees and allocations are consistent with the discretion granted under the operative documents. Further inquiries should be directed to counsel. And then, 90 seconds later, from his personal number, the second message, the real one. No lawyer copied on this. You were always bad with money, Nora. It's why your father gave it to me. She read that one out loud in the yard, perfectly level, and then she went inside and came back with a banker's box with a label already on it in fresh marker, Roger, and dropped both printouts in. Everything he sends goes in the box, she said. Every text, every card, every kindness, with a hook in it. If he wants to write the record, fine, I'll keep it. The Audi came that Wednesday at dusk. No knock, no call. Just Roger Sloane's charcoal gray sedan easing to the curb across the street while I was walking the new fence line with a flashlight. Sitting there with the engine running and the headlights angled so they washed the fresh cedar white, long enough for Gus, at the window in the blue hour, to go still and say, to no one, there's a car at the branch after close. Then it pulled away, unhurried, the way you leave when the point was the arriving. I wrote down the time. It went in the box. The simple person was Lucy Tron, who runs the county's elder justice clinic out of 2 rooms above the library with a caseload that would break a mule, and who listened to our whole tangle with her eyes closed, which I mistook for fatigue and turned out to be filing. Okay, she said, opening them. Here's your map, and I want you to hear the good news hiding in the bad. Bad news. A durable power of attorney survives your divorce because it's Gus's document, not yours. Gus gave it, so the divorce court never touched it. Good news, and I want you to hold on to this one with both hands. Gus gave it, which means Gus can take it back. She turned to him, and she was the first professional in that whole saga who talked to him instead of about him. Mr. Novak, capacity isn't a light switch. It's a dimmer, and the law knows it even when families forget. It's task-specific, and it's time-specific. If you understand what a power of attorney is, what revoking it does, and what you'd be choosing instead, at the moment you sign, the morning version of you can fire him even if the evening version of you gets lost on the way to the car. We paper it bulletproof. Independent doctor, independent lawyer, that's me, 2 witnesses and video. He'll scream undue influence. The film answers him. And the 81,000? Nora said. Different lever, and a beautiful one. Banks have elder financial abuse units with mandatory reporting duties, and they are terrified of exactly this fact pattern. We bring them the fee jump, the RS Capital transfers, the cut-off care they can freeze, flag, and file. And Adult Protective Services. She caught Nora's flinch. No, listen. Everyone thinks apps is a thing that happens to you. Used right, it's a thing that happens for you. We call them before he does. Which turned out to be prophetic by roughly 9 days. It was in Lucy's office, actually, that Roger's next move arrived. Nora's phone lighting up with a voicemail she put on speaker with the expression of a bomb tech. His voice filled the little room, warm as a loan officer, smooth as a brochure. Nora, this adversarial energy isn't helping your father. Here's a path back to normal. Cedarbrook has a memory care opening on the 15th, I've held it, that took favors. You consent to the placement, sign the intake as family, and the day he's admitted I'll restore the aid budget retroactively and release funds for whatever he needs. Care flows the moment you cooperate. That's not a threat. It's just how the account works now. Silence. In the office. Then Lucy leaned back with her hands laced behind her head and beamed at the phone like it had brought her flowers. He conditioned the man's care on your compliance, she said, out loud. On a recording he made himself. Predators narrate. It's my favorite thing about them. Forward me that, and do not delete it if the building catches fire. We went to Gus's house that Thursday, because Lucy needed his original trust binder, and because Nora had a childhood key, and because she found this out from a neighbor's text, a photo of a sign. The house was being staged for sale. Walking Gus through his own emptied living room is a thing I won't try to make pretty. The furniture was gone to storage. The books were boxed by a service that had alphabetized his whole life into cartons labeled MISC. He stood in the bare room where he'd taught Nora to waltz on his shoe tops, turned in a slow circle, and said, in morning-clear voice, well, somebody's certainly efficient. And the dignity of it broke me worse than tears would have. The trust binder was in his study closet where he'd told us it would be. His filing was immaculate. The disease had taken rooms, not systems, and while Nora pulled it, I found the listing packet squared on the kitchen counter. Open house Sunday. Offers reviewed Friday next. And under the packet, older, in a folder, Gus himself reached past me and lifted with 2 fingers like a canceled check, was the document that rewrote the whole story. An advisory services agreement. Sloan Wealth Strategies. Client, August Novak. Roger's signature, confident as ever. Dated 2 years. 2 years before Roger Sloan ever took Nora Novak to dinner. She read the date 3 times. I watched her run her own history back through it, the charity gala where he'd happened to be seated at her table, how much he'd already known about her, how he'd appeared at her mother's funeral, solemn and indispensable, your father's advisor, here to help with everything, and I watched 14 years of a marriage recompile in her face into something with a different name. He was Dad's advisor first, she said, very quietly. I wasn't the beginning. I was access. He didn't marry me, Cole. He onboarded me, and because the universe has a sense of theater, that is the exact moment the realtor's SUV pulled into the driveway. Nice woman. Brutal timing. She took one look at us, stepped onto the porch, and called her client, and Roger asked for the phone, and his voice came out of the speaker into his former father-in-law's gutted kitchen, pleasant as a lobby. Nora, you're trespassing in an asset I'm charged with managing, with a cognitively impaired man in tow. Think about the optics, because I promise you apps will. Take Dad back to your little arrangement, and we'll all pretend this didn't happen. A beat, and then, softer, the mask fully off for just 5 words. You can't afford me, sweetheart. Gus held out his hand for the phone. The realtor, God bless her, gave it to him. Roger, Gus said, in the voice that had declined loans to better men, it's my kitchen. I know it's my kitchen, and I'm beginning to remember what else is mine. Dusk caught us 4 days later, because dusk always gets a move in. I was on shift when Nora's call dropped into my phone like ice water. Gus gone, 20 minutes, the new fence intact, and the side gate defeated with a bank manager's patience. Dusk coming down purple. I told dispatch I was taking my meal break, drove straight to the one address that mattered. And there he was, outside the coffee shop that used to be First Merchant, in the gold-lit windows glow, trying his keys against a door that stopped answering to them in 2009, rattling, checking his watch, rattling, a kid inside reaching for a phone. You do not correct a man out of his world at dusk. You get a visa and go in. Mr. Novak, I came up slow, at an angle, hands visible, voice pitched for a lobby. Sir, thank goodness. Main office sent me. The branch is closed today. Surprise audit. He turned, keys in hand, fog and fear all through his eyes, and grabbed the story like a rail. Audit? Nobody called me about an audit. That's why they call it a surprise, sir. They need you back at the main office. Your daughter's driving. She's got the files. He straightened his cardigan. He looked at the dark coffee shop one more time, and then, quietly, in the space between his world and ours, the fog parted for one terrible lucid second. And Gus Novak looked at his own keys in his own hand and said, "The branch is closed, isn't it? It's been closed a long time." A breath. Then, why do I still have the keys, Cole? I get asked why paramedics burn out. It is not the blood. It is sentences like that one. We got him home. Nora got him warm. And the town, to its credit, closed ranks in the small ways towns still know how to. Deb, who has run the coffee shop in the old First Merchant building for 6 years and had been comping the branch manager a decaf at his corner table for most of them, drove over the next afternoon with a bakery box and a plan. She'd taped Gus's photo behind her register with Nora's number and mine under it, briefed her whole crew, and formally designated the corner table the manager's office. Reserved. If he presents at my door at any hour, she told Nora, in the exact cadence of someone who'd rehearsed it so she wouldn't cry, my staff seats him, pours him a decaf, and calls you before the cup's half gone. Nobody films him. Nobody corrects him. In my building, the branch never closed. Gus, listening from his chair with his eyes suspiciously bright, said only, "See that the girl gets a raise." And Deb said, "Way ahead of you, sir." And that was the day I understood we weren't building a fence around Gus Novak. The whole town was. And 41 hours later, the bill for that evening arrived anyway, because someone in the coffee shop had posted a photo to the town Facebook group. Anyone know this sweet, confused gentleman downtown? And Roger Sloan reads that group like a ticker. Thursday's mail brought 2 envelopes. The first, a letter from Roger's attorney, citing an elopement incident, publicly documented, demanding Gus's return to a licensed care environment and reserving all remedies. The second, thinner, addressed to Gus in Roger's own fountain pen, a birthday card 10 days early. "Miss our lunches, pal. Once you're settled at Cedarbrook, we'll get back to it." R, and folded inside the card, like a knife in a napkin, an appointment confirmation, cognitive evaluation, Dr. M. Pellman, arranged by POA. The 22nd. 10 a.m. Lucy translated it for us over speakerphone in one sentence. The trust had a springing clause, certification of incapacity by 2 physicians, and every last safeguard fell away, and Roger held everything, forever, no further questions asked. 10 days, Nora said. She was standing at the new fence when she said it, hand flat on the top rail, and she wasn't shaking. That was the week she stopped shaking. He's got Dad scheduled for demolition in 10 days. Then, we beat him to the inspection, I said. We finish ours first. The counter bill took 6 days, and it ran on morning light. Day 1 was Dr. Aluko, independent geriatrician, chosen by Lucy off a list Roger had never touched, who spent 90 minutes at Nora's kitchen table at 8 a.m., Gus's best hour, coffeed and cardiganed, and did not ask him to count backward by sevens like a circus act. She asked him what a power of attorney was. He explained it the way he'd explained it across a desk for 30 years to widows and welders, and then he explained what revoking Rogers would do, and what naming Nora instead would mean, and what could go wrong, and why he wanted it anyway. Somewhere in there, she asked him, gently, whether he understood his diagnosis. And Gus Novak folded his hands and gave the answer I will carry to my own last Tuesday. I understand I'm a bank at closing time, he said. The vault's still full. The hours are just shorter. That's exactly why I need to choose my tellers now. And doctor, I want it on your record. I am not confused about Roger Sloan. I am insulted by him. Those are different findings. She wrote for a long time. Her report, delivered in language built to survive a courtroom, said what we needed it to say. Fluctuating cognition, yes, and clearly retained decisional capacity in structured morning settings for exactly the decisions at hand. Day 3 was the bank, the real one, the regional successor that had swallowed First Merchant, where a personal banker named Patrice had been catching Gus's arm since she was a teller he'd trained in 1998. We brought her the box, the tripled fee, the RS Capital transfers, the strangled aid payments, the voicemail transcript. Patrice read for 10 minutes. Went very still in a way I've seen in charge nurses right before they take over a scene, and picked up her phone. This goes to our elder financial exploitation unit today, she said. There will be a hold on outbound transfers by Friday, and a report filed with the state. That part's not a favor. Mr. Novak, it's the law, and it's my pleasure. She looked at Gus over her glasses, and her voice cracked exactly once. You hired me when 3 branches wouldn't. Watch what I learned. Day 4. Adult Protective Services came, summoned first by us as Lucy had ordered, so that Roger's complaint landed second into a file that already existed. Miss Ferreira, 20 years in, unhurried eyes, walked the house Roger's letter had called an unlicensed arrangement. She found the new fence, the labeled door alarms, the med organizer checked off in 2 handwritings, the whiteboard by the kitchen, day, date, weather, today's plan, and, at the kitchen table, Gus, who stood, shook her hand, and presented, unprompted, a green ledger book in which he had been balancing his own medication schedule like a cash drawer, initialed daily. My daughter runs a tight branch, he told her. I'd know. Ms. Ferreira went through that ledger page by page. At the door, entirely against regulation, she paused. My report reflects what I saw, she said. What I saw was a supported adult in a safe home. And Miss Novak, when a reporter's complaint arrives the same week as his demand letter and his facility hold, we notice the choreography. We're not new. Day 5 belonged to Lucy's intern, a ferocious 24-year-old named Sana, who had been given one assignment, find out why he wants Cedarbrook specifically, and came back with it in under 3 hours, printed and flagged. Cedarbrook's parent company published a glossy little PDF for the trade. Our preferred advisory partners, a referral network of wealth managers who steered clients into placement and collected, in the brochure's own cheerful font, placement coordination fees. Page 4, in a gray suit and a trust me smile, was Roger Sloan. He wasn't just parking Gus somewhere convenient. He was getting paid at the door. Into the box, Nora said. And her voice had stopped having any temperature at all when his name came up, which I understood by then was the sound of her winning. Roger felt the ground tilt. Served men always do. Because that evening his last soft offer arrived. Texted directly to Nora. All the warmth switched back on. This has gotten away from both of us. Withdraw whatever your library lawyer filed, and I'll waive the fee dispute entirely. Restore the aid. And we forget the whole chapter. I'm trying to protect your father's dignity, Nora. Clock's ticking on that opening at Cedarbrook. She showed it to Lucy, who read it twice and smiled like a saw. He's negotiating, Lucy said. Predators don't negotiate with prey. Congratulations, you've been promoted to problem. Don't reply. Problems don't text back. Signing morning was day 6, 9:15. Kitchen table. Sun on the statements like approval. Lucy set the camera. Patrice stood witness on her day off. In her bank blazer. Because, she said, some things you witness in uniform. Deb from the coffee shop, who had been slipping Gus a corner table and a decaf for the branch manager for 6 years, stood the other side. Dr. Aluko's letter, dated that same morning after a fresh 15-minute check, lay on top of the packet. And Gus Novak, in his good tie, read every page out loud, the whole revocation. The new power of attorney naming Nora, the trust amendment removing Roger Sloan from every line he'd ever crawled into. Read it the way he used to read loan terms to 18-year-olds so nobody could ever say they didn't know. And then he took the pen. His hand shakes on coffee cups. It did not shake once, on 9 signatures, and the 9th was the strongest of them all. There was a wobble, and it wasn't his. The night before, at the fence in the dark, Nora had come apart in the one place she allowed it, out of her father's sight line, one hand on the new rail. What if the 22nd goes wrong anyway, she'd said. What if Pellman's report says the bad thing? And a judge decides one bad evaluation outweighs, Cole. I signed papers 40 days ago admitting I'm terrible at choosing people. What if I'm choosing wrong again? What if I'm just grabbing the nearest steady thing because I'm drowning? Then take the minute, I said. Take all the minutes. I work nights, Nora. I'm good at staying up. She'd laughed, wet and surprised, and leaned her forehead on my shoulder for exactly 4 seconds, which we did not discuss, and which I have thought about since more than I'll admit in a comment section. But the signing morning itself, Gus settled all wobbles for the whole household. When the last page was witnessed and filmed, he squared the stack, tapped it twice on the table like cash, and slid one extra envelope, one none of us had drafted, across to his daughter. Her name on it, in his bank manager copperplate. That one's not for now, he said gruff, not meeting her eyes. That's for the far Tuesday. When I ask you who you are, and sweetheart, one day I will. You read me that. It's all in there. Consider it a standing order. Nobody in that kitchen was okay for a while, and it was the good kind of not okay. And then Lucy blew her nose like a trumpet and said, "Right, beautiful now. Now let's go ruin a wealth manager's Thursday." And serve the revocation packet on Sloan Wealth Strategies by certified process at 2:15 that afternoon. Roger came to the clinic on the 22nd anyway. Of course he did. Men like Roger believe paper only counts when they're holding it. He'd been served 5 days and had his attorney's answer half-drafted. And he walked into Dr. Pellman's lobby at 9:52 with a leather folio and the bounce of a man arriving to collect a certified check. What he found, arranged in the good chairs like a board that had met without him, was Gus Novak in his funeral and victory suit. Nora beside him, Lucy Tran with a banker's box on her knees, and me, off shift, showered and enjoying myself in a way I'd want a chaplain to overlook. "This is inappropriate," Roger opened, smooth even now, pitching it to the receptionist. To the room, to the record he assumed he'd control. "This is a private medical appointment for a vulnerable adult, and this, entourage, is exactly the undue influence I've been documenting. Nora, last chance to handle this like family." "Family," Nora said. "Okay, let's handle it like family." And she stood up and dealt the box, item by item, onto the low lobby table, naming every card in a voice her father used for foreclosures. Revocation of power of attorney, executed, witnessed, filmed, served on you Thursday. You're not his POA, Roger. You're a guy in a lobby. Independent capacity evaluation. Dr. Aluko, 9 pages, morning executed, bulletproof. The bank's hold letter. Outbound transfers frozen pending their elder exploitation review, which their unit filed with the state. Which is not us being dramatic. It's them obeying a statute. The fee schedule you tripled the month we separated. $81,000 of quarterly transfers to RS Capital Partners, which is you, paying yourself. From him, your voicemail, transcribed, and Roger, do listen to it sometime, you narrate. Conditioning my father's medication money on my signature at Cedarbrook. Which brings me to Cedarbrook's referral fee arrangement with advisory partners. Lucy has the brochure. You're on page 4. Smiling. She squared the last page and looked at him, almost kindly. You scheduled an evaluation for today. Sit down if you like. We finished ours. The lobby had gone church quiet. Dr. Pellman's receptionist had both hands over her mouth. Roger's eyes did the professional pass over the documents. I watched him do the math he was actually good at. And then he did the thing his kind always does, one move too late. He went for the throat. He won't remember any of this in a year. Roger said softly, to Nora, only to Nora, meant to cut only her. You're burning your life down for a man who won't even know you're Roger. Gus didn't stand up. He didn't have to. He set both hands on his cane and leaned forward 1 inch. And 40 years of Monday mornings came off him like heat off a vault door. You counted on me forgetting, he said. A beat, long enough to notarize. I counted better. And then, because God loves a callback, Gus Novak looked his former son-in-law up and down one last time, taking in the folio, the tie, the whole polished apparatus of him, and delivered the performance review 31 years of branch management had been warming up for. You're terminated, son. Effective immediately. He tipped his head toward the door. Clean out your desk. The settlement took 11 days, and Lucy enjoyed every one of them. Full resignation from every fiduciary role. The listing on Gus's house withdrawn. The sign came down while the neighbors watched from their porches like it was a hanging. Restitution of the RS Capital, transfers on a schedule the bank's unit supervised. First payment before the month was out, because the alternative envelope, the one addressed to the State Securities Board, with the DAS Elder Unit CCDD, sat in Lucy's outbox where Roger's attorney had been allowed to see it. The state matter stayed open anyway. Some referrals, once a bank files them, don't come off the books because a man says sorry. Last we heard, Roger Sloan had left the firm to pursue independent opportunities, 2 states away, where I sincerely hope every funeral he attends is watched by someone like Lucy. Duce came back the following Monday. She cried in the driveway. Gus told her the branch had missed its best teller and gave her the corner desk, by which he meant the good armchair. The fence got finished in the quiet after. All 40 feet, cedar set so plumb Gus checked every post with his level and initialed each one in pencil at the base, tiny, where only inspectors would look. And at the corner where our 2 yards meet, at his direction and under his supervision, we built one thing that wasn't in any plan. A bench. Just wide enough for 2. Facing the morning. He hung the level above it on a brass hook and declared the whole installation the branch office, and he holds hours there now, most good mornings. The Hendricks kid brings his math homework. The mail carrier gets her rate quote, and a retired bank manager balances a small green ledger in the sun, initialing his days. The Far Tuesdays envelope lives in Nora's desk drawer, unopened. Some Tuesdays are still ours. Most of them, so far. We don't count them out loud, and we don't waste one. And on a morning in late spring, I came off a night shift at 6:40, the hour this whole story keeps, and found coffee waiting on the fence rail on my side, and Nora on her side in the early gold, and Gus down the fence line at his bench, pretending magnificently not to supervise. I took the mug. Our hands did the thing hands do. And she looked at me over 40 feet of the straightest fence in the county and said it, the thing she'd been carrying. In the fewest words, the truth would fit in. Coal. A beat. Steam off the coffee. The whole street holding its breath. He loses Tuesdays. Her voice went to a whisper and held. He keeps you. So I leaned over that fence. Over it, mind you. We built it, and I'll respect it. And I kissed her in the morning light with a coffee going cold in my hand, and from down the rail came the delighted, scandalized voice of upper management. On the clock, you two? Fine. Fine. A pause. The scratch of pencil in a green ledger. entering it. Nora, sweetheart, keep this one on the books. We intend to. Gus, permanent file. So now it's your turn, and I want the real answer, not the easy one. If you'd walked out at dawn and found Gus in your yard, holding a level to your fence post and telling you it was out of plumb, honestly, would you have stepped into his world for a minute, or corrected him back into yours? And here's the one I actually want in the comments. And take your time with it. Who's the person you're losing a little at a time? And what's the one thing the disease still hasn't managed to take from them? The recipe, the harmony, the handshake, the decimal. Tell me about that one thing. I read every single comment, and this comment section remembers what the world forgets. If this story found you the way that family found me, subscribe. Because next week's story starts with a wrong number text at midnight, and the woman who answered it anyway.